Welcome to Nice Ashes. I'm Nate.
And I'm Mike.
And joining us for this episode, we have Dev.
Hello.
What are we smoking, Dev?
Yo, you didn't tell me yet. And because my vision is so poor,
What's it look
I can't
like,
even
though?
read it. And
What's
it's
it
sort
look
of dark
like?
in here. It looks like a...
It's a Ruination Man O War.
Yeah, and there's a picture of a man on here, and he looks horrified.
Well, yeah. I think it's just a helmet. It's the helmet, like a Centurion helmet, right, Mike?
I would say it's more like a knight helmet.
Roman Legion helmet or something.
Oh, I'm
Yeah.
looking at it from a whole
Maybe.
different perspective. I'll point that out later.
Yeah.
Has
But it
fantasy
is a
swords on it, I know that.
Yes, it's a torpedo. Now, I don't think we've smoked any Ruinations before, have we, Mike?
No. I believe this is a Man O War brand, and Ruination is the specific cigar.
Oh, I was
Yes.
way off. Knew it started with an M, though.
But this is the first Man O War cigar that we have smoked on the show. It's a box-pressed torpedo.
Yes, and we're going to light up. Dev, for a refresher, you can watch me. We're just, usually what Mike and I have been doing is we burn the foot a little bit and then inhale and light. So we're going to light up, and you can light up too, Mike. I do like the torpedoes. They're very easy to light.
I like the shape.
Yes.
Now, we V-cut ours.
Oh, interesting.
Well, I was looking
angle cut
online
mine.
because, I was looking online about the better cuts for torpedoes, and a lot of people were saying that they will straight cut a lot of other cigars, but for a torpedo, a lot of people will actually V-cut it. I guess it helps it retain its shape and the intended airflow of the torpedo shape. Of course, that could all be nonsense, but I found it on the internet, so it's most likely to be true.
I typically V-cut everything.
Yeah, even your hair. I'm also drinking a Joseph Bra Summer Brew, and Dev has something different.
Yeah, I'm doing a Sociable Cider Works, and it's the Beach Cruiser, which is a tropical apple. Not familiar with tropical apples, but it's pretty tasty.
I'm guessing it pairs
Very
pretty
nice.
well with this cigar. It's got a pretty smooth start, I think.
I think so, too.
What does Mike think?
It's smooth, but it does have a little bite. It's got a little bite. Not in a
Yep.
bad way.
Not necessarily in a bad way. We'll see if that mellows out or turns to something else.
Right. I'm pairing mine with Guinness.
Nice.
Nice.
Oh, I wanted to mention we're up to 20 Instagram followers, Mike.
Ooh.
Oh.
And we've had well over 2,000 downloads of our podcast, the 3
Very
years
nice.
we've been running. So that's pretty cool. We have listeners all over the globe.
That is pretty cool.
So if you haven't done it yet, Nice Ashes Podcast on Instagram, niceashespodcast.com, and Nice Ashes Podcast on Facebook and Patreon. Give us a listen, a follow. If you have the time to write us a little review on whatever podcast platform you listen to us on, that would be hugely helpful with the algorithms, because really it's us versus the AI bots. And if you need more information on AI bots, we did a whole episode on that, but I can't for the life of me remember which one that was now. Search our hashtags.
Classic.
So what are we going to talk about today?
Well, with the housekeeping out of the way, I thought since it's June, we'd talk about the big celebration of this month, which is Men's Mental Health Month.
Wait, isn't it also Gay Pride?
I never heard of that. You see,
Yeah,
all
me
the
neither.
all the news media outlets cover men's mental health, and they barely mention anything about Pride. Maybe next year we'll have to do an episode on Pride, if that's the lesser known celebration of the month.
For sure.
Now, I take issue because you are underrepresenting the queer voices that are also part of Pride. It's
Well,
not
you
gay
bring
pride.
up a good point, Mike.
It's LGBTQ2 plus IA Pride.
17, 3.14.
That is true.
But I did want to mention up front, and probably again at the end if I remember, that talking about men's mental health, Men's Health Awareness Month, is not in any way taking anything away from Pride Month, nor is Pride Month taking anything away from Men's Mental Health Month. The 2 months can coexist. I'm not here to complain and say we should do away with Pride Month. That's not what this is about. I just wanted to bring in some stats and some conversation about men's health, men's mental health, because it seems to be a severely underrepresented facet of our society as a whole, at least in America.
I would agree with that.
I also agree.
So, Mike and Dev, you have an option. The option is we can start heavy and get progressively lighter, or we can start lighter and get progressively heavier.
I think we should ease into it, personally.
Okay. I was kind of thinking we should do the heavy first, and then let our listeners know, like, okay, if I can get through the first, like, however long they're talking about the heavy stuff, then it's going to get lighter.
That's a good point there. It's just it's tough too when some of the stuff hits so close to home where like, okay, I'm not trying to harsh my own mellow. You know what I mean?
Yeah. What do you think, Mike? You be the tiebreaker.
Well, unfortunately, Dev, I thought we should just jump right in and get the ugly part over with.
All right, we'll do that as long as that's okay with everyone.
I'm on board.
All right. So what I ended up doing was I pulled a bunch of statistics. Initially, this episode on a whole was going to be a lot darker themed. And, but because it is Men's Mental Health Month for June, I was able to expand this out a bit so it wasn't so dark and heavy all the time. But the first statistics that I ended up pulling and researching were suicide statistics. And
Sure.
I don't know if anyone knows offhand what percentage of suicides in America are specifically done by white males.
I don't know for sure, but I know that I've heard things, and I feel like it's the majority, like it's the highest percentage.
Yeah, like
of all suicides.
68%.
That's
68.
really high.
68.46.
I was actually going to guess 65. 68.46,
Okay.
You said?
Yep.
That's almost 69%.
This is-
That's
Yeah.
Just shy.
Yep. Come on, men, if we bandy together. No. These are 2022 or 2022 numbers. Yeah, in the year 2022. Okay, so for 2022, there were 1.7 million suicide attempts. In 22, it was the 11th leading cause of death. I believe it's jumped now to the 10th leading cause of death.
wow.
Just shy of 50,000 died by suicide. And in 2022, men died by suicide 3.85 times more than women. And like I said before, 68.46% of the suicide deaths in 2022 were by white males. And firearms accounted for 54.64% of all suicide deaths. And here's the one that I think we really need to focus on is 94% of adults that were surveyed in the United States think that suicide can be prevented.
Wow. So I'm sorry. Are all these, just to clarify, are these statistics are in the U.S. only?
Yeah, these
okay.
are United States.
Okay.
This is the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention is where all these stats came from.
Okay.
You said that 68.4% of suicides are white men. What percentage are just men?
Whatever. So you have to do some weird math for this because they said in 2022, men died by suicide 3.85 times more than women. So you'll have to do some algebra or something where like X, you're like 100%, and then women equals X, but men is 3.85X equals 100. So whatever that ends up being. Quick
That
math,
would be
Liz, it's quick.
about
Yeah.
80%. It would be just shy of 80%. So
Yeah.
it'd be between 75 and 80%.
So why are white men killing themselves more often than any
I'm
other?
glad you asked. I have answers.
Okay. Oh, that's great. So led you right into it.
Yes.
I do have a
I did
second
want to
question.
say... Oh, yeah. Sorry.
Sorry, buddy. Does this factor in people who drink themselves to death? Or
I'm glad you asked. My next stat before answering Dev's question was, while firearms are the most common method, 54.64% of all suicide deaths, the next most common methods were suffocation, which includes hangings, at 24.75%, and poisoning, which includes drug overdose, at 12.43%.
I guess I was getting more at like a death of despair, you know?
You're getting at the Nick Cage leaving Las Vegas. I don't know how many people actually do that. Where, like I feel like death by alcohol poisoning is a long drawn out affair. I don't know if they would call that death by suicide or death by substance abuse.
Right. I would say they're definitely related.
Oh, I don't disagree at all. They just did break that down in this one. So I've got one here, and it is Men in Suicide. Why are white men most at risk? And this is from Baton Rouge General Hospital.org. And so depression is one of the most common ones, and they talk about things you can do. And they say that 90% of those who died by suicide had a diagnosable mental health condition at the time of their death, and a lot of them might have even sought out care. I've got a chart that I'm going to get to in just a second, but this one gets to the crux of it here from AAMC.org. Fucking acronyms all the time, everywhere. What does it mean? Association of American Medical Colleges is this next site here. And they're writing that a lot of times when it comes to men problems, society blames the men themselves for the struggles. Or they're the ones who often turn to substance abuse and violent behavior rather than getting help for their mental health. And for some reason, I have no idea why, it has nothing to do with Star Wars, but white men are the ones who struggle to keep up with the changing workforce and gender norms. And then they embrace unhealthy attitudes and beliefs at the expense of their own well-being. But they're saying, this one here says that men aren't the problem. It's the way that society as a whole and healthcare providers specifically treat them. So they said, this one's talking about how the COVID pandemic really kind of supercharged the men's mental health crisis. I don't know if any of you felt that.
I would say that it supercharged suicide rates in general. I mean, I don't know a single person who wasn't like feeling in a pretty low place at some point during the pandemic.
Yeah, it was a weird thing. I know a lot of the stuff that I read talked about people worrying about losing their jobs, you know, not even necessarily loved ones dying and stuff, although that was a concern as well. But, you know, kind of the loss of security, loss of income, like nobody can go to the office. What are you going to do if you lose this one? Like, how would you get another one in an entirely remote world?
Well, and then just like also just the whole idea of like, when is this going to end? Is this going to end? Is this reality?
Yeah.
I mean, it stretched out for a long period of time. And, you know, I think people were feeling really hopeless and helpless.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Now, this one also pulls in some data from Canada. So taking Canada and United States, the findings were that more than 60% of the men who died by suicide had accessed mental health care services within the previous year. So that's a pretty abysmal healthcare, rah, we got your back rate. If, you know, you've got 60% of those who died tried to reach out and get help.
So that says that they did reach out to try to get help?
Yeah.
Wow.
And this is of those that committed suicide and succeeded.
Yeah, that is.
So those that died,
alarming.
60% of those tried to get help.
Yeah. So, I mean, what is the answer? You know, the healthcare system's not equipped to know how to handle those cries for help, you know?
Yeah. Well, and so here it goes into it, because this is the medical colleges. But it says that when the men do go in to seek the medical attention, they generally feel that the providers mislabel and underestimate their needs. And the providers do not seem to have a genuine interest in their problems. And for some time, there's been research that's shown mental health providers may miss or diagnose psychological problems in men because of their own gender biases, where they might believe the man just has to man up or the man can't show feelings or emotions. And, you know, I think hopefully that's one thing, like Mike and my generation and more sensitives of Dev's generation and older are trying to kind of change. Like, yeah, it's normal to see a dad playing with their children at the playground. You know, it's okay for a guy to cry at a movie or if something happens in their life. You know, emotion needs to come out in good outlets and not like angry outlets.
Absolutely. I mean, I think that acceptance it seems like it's becoming more and more apparent. I mean, there's a lot more talk about it. There is a lot more awareness to it, but it doesn't seem to really be solving the problem.
Yeah. And it says here that men are diagnosed with depression at lower rates than women, despite having higher rates of suicide and substance use and violent behavior. So that might be something where maybe men need an AI mental health bot that they can program to not have gender bias.
I could see that. And then maybe they're a little bit more comfortable sort of expressing themselves because they're not doing it to another person for fear of judgment.
Any thoughts, Mike?
Have either one of you heard of what do we call it's like sociological concept called the disposable male?
You mean outside of living it?
No, it's outside of living it. Have you guys ever heard of
No, I don't think I've heard of it.
I have not.
So the idea is that culturally, men are disposable and women are not. And the theory or the concept is that because men can reproduce with many different women and women can only reproduce, one child at a time, that men can die at a higher rate in society and society will survive. So as a result, we've created a culture, and this goes back thousands of years, where men are treated as disposable, which explains things like conscription of troops, things like why male-dominated occupations are typically more dangerous, things like why men can be dismissed for their concerns more easily. All sorts of things go back to the root that men are disposable.
Okay.
Interesting.
I don't know that I believe that 100%. Like, I get the evolutionary bias of, one man can, repopulate an area, let's say. I mean, it's the same with deer hunting, that there's a reason why usually there's more tags for bucks, the males, than there are for the females, unless they want to drastically reduce the herd. The conscription one is interesting, though, we talked on a previous episode where men have different, bone and muscle densities than women, which would make them perhaps the ideal fighter if you have to go fight a bunch of people, which is, less important nowadays when we have drone pilots and people don't usually engage in hand-to-hand as much as they used to. It's more bomby, but it is interesting.
I'm not saying that it's 100% true.
Oh,
but
no,
I think that there's
yeah.
elements of it that ring true, right? So,
I mean, I could see
oftentimes. Go ahead, please.
I was just going to say that it's easy to see how those sorts of comparisons and that sort of like not conclusion, but like that you could draw that sort of idea from what you had said. It makes sense. It doesn't mean that it's true, but like I could see how some people could like look at that and say, oh, here's why. That there's just a general kind of feeling that like, yeah, men are of a disposable, not necessarily to that like level or that extent, but just a kind of like overlying, underlying rather feeling.
I think it depends on who you're talking to in some cases. I think Hollywood has by and large tried to dispose of the male viewer with a lot of their movies and things. And we're not going to get into all of that because we've had other episodes about that. But, it's socially acceptable to say, oh, that man is worthless, blah, 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 and to, write off a man. Whereas the same is not true if you said something about a woman, if you said the same thing about a woman or, a minority, then it's trouble. But everything's okay to say, to kind of buy into that disposable man theory or hypothesis.
Yes.
And our society's made it okay. And I think that's what was interesting about that article that said, men are diagnosed at a much lower rate for depression despite having a much higher suicide rate than women. So it's even prevalent in medical circles where it should be the most rational and logical and less emotionally driven thing outside of maybe science in the lab. But
it's possible. Like I say, I've always found that interesting as a potential route. Like I say, because like my profession is generally looked down upon. Certainly when I was going to high school, it was not on my main, like it wasn't in my vision. And they push people into like career paths that don't pay as well. So it has nothing to do with how much money it makes, how important it is. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that it's male dominated. It could be because it's quote unquote blue collar, but none of the trades are as blue collar as they were. Let's put it that way. So,
yeah,
I just find it interesting.
Yeah, definitely. Where are you at with your cigar, Mike?
I would say I'm about halfway.
Yeah, I think I'm about halfway. Dev's a little bit behind, but that's okay.
Yes.
This is, I don't know, only the second or third cigar I've seen him smoke. So I guess back in the day, though.
Oh, yeah.
He'd had shoeboxes full of them. Dev, what do you think of it so far?
I'm enjoying it. The flavor did get a little bit more intense, but I like it. It's definitely more of a rich flavor. It's still smooth though.
Yeah,
I like it. It's smooth. The flavor for me hasn't changed that much. It does have that little bit of bite.
Yeah. It's very smooth. I don't know that it's a flavor I particularly. I'm not going to say I dislike the flavor, and we're only halfway through. But sometimes we smoke a cigar and we're like, wow, this is quite something, and sometimes we're like, wow, this is quite something else. Did I step in something? And I think this one's smooth and good. We'll see.
It reminds me of a Gurkha Beauty.
Yeah. And that's the one we liked better than the Beast, right?
Yes. Yeah. It's good, but it's not. I'm not writing home about it.
Yeah. We'll make a podcast about it, but you want me to put pen to paper? Absolutely not. All right. And then this is the portion of the podcast where we all sit here and go, I remember in high school they taught me cursive, and now these kids they can't even write anything down, and they're always on their phones, and get off my lawn.
Classic.
It is kind of depressing.
Just kidding.
I hung out with my nephew yesterday, and he's a good guy. It was a lot of fun, but his grammar is very poor. Very poor. high school graduate, and he just cannot string a sentence together in a way that is proper English. It's kind of frightening.
Well, as long as he can say, "Welcome to Costco, I love you," he'll be okay. All right, I've got one more little infographic here that nobody else can see, but Dev, if he squints, about men's mental health, and then we'll go into some other men issues. Not those issues, ladies. Ha ha ha! That's the after hours. Nice ashes. Broadcast on AM radio only. Okay, the biggest cause of mental health issues in men's lives are women. No, I'm just kidding. That's a joke. Sorry, trying to bring some levity. Work pressure is 32%. I think there are 1,000 men polled for this by the Priory Group. I don't know if they're in, I can't remember where they're from. They're not in America, but they polled these men. 32% said work pressure contributes to the biggest contributor to their mental health. The next largest at 31%, financial issues, and then their health is the third with 23%. So those are kind of the three main issues causing mental stress on men.
What was the last one? Their health?
Yes.
Oh, like their physical health.
Yeah, like is this chest pain a heart attack, or did I just eat too many spicy chips or something? Like, is this how I go, or is...
Interesting. I guess that could encompass like things like anxiety and right?
Anything, yeah.
Okay.
40% of men said it would take thoughts of suicide or self-harm to compel them to seek professional help. So they need to get to that kind of, I think, a pretty severe point in mental health to even consider going to get mental help.
Yes.
I say I would not go get mental help either.
I think I can agree that I would be one of those people too.
I know that I'm one of those people.
So we're not...
I have to be.
Yeah, we're not the whole problem as men, but we're part of it for sure.
For sure.
You know, and I think for me, like a lot of it is kind of like the social stigma.
It's a social
for
stigma.
Me, I feel like it's like drawing attention to yourself. I understand the social stigma thing, but also just the, once I come forward and say something to somebody, that makes it real. Now it's real, and I've sort of admitted to it. So now I know about it, and somebody else knows about it. It's not just in my head anymore.
Yeah. Well, it might be too, like, if I say something and it turns out to actually be serious, then how am I going to provide for my family? Or, like, how serious is serious? I mean, I remember as a kid, like, my dad would never go to the doctor when he was sick and stuff. And not that you have to go if you know what it is and every time like that, but he just would not go ever. And my grandmother and mom would have to basically convince him to go to the doctor to get help. And, I don't know what all that stuff is. A different generation for sure, but do we as men think if we take time for ourselves with like a doctor thing that might end up putting us out of commission for a while? Like, is that not in our role as providers? Is that at conflict with how we were brought up or raised? Or
I think it's also like a macho thing in a way, like, like I'm good, I'm fine, I'll be okay. Like, just even though you're not okay, you're just telling yourself you're okay.
Yeah.
And you don't want the other people say, a person that's the head of their family, so to speak, especially in the olden days, that person is looked on as the captain of that ship. And if they're, coming forth with problems, that's showing like a weakness and therefore sort of discrediting their own sort of manliness in a way.
Well, this ties right in with this next statistic. 40% of men that were polled have never spoken to anyone about their mental health. 29% are too embarrassed to speak about it, and 20% say there's a negative stigma on the issue. So that's almost 50% of those that have never talked to anybody about it, which are pretty big numbers, pretty big statistical.
Yeah, and that's kind of right in line with what we were just talking about.
And then the last one here is 77% of the men polled have suffered with symptoms of negative mental health. Any more mental health topics, discussions, questions, queries, thoughts? Mike, did you have something else?
I would say that men still, at least I was, we are taught as children to walk it off and to be tough. And that toughness, I think, leads a lot of men to not address their concerns and feelings about things. So, for me
it's not
personally,
really a healthy way to go about it.
It's terrible. It's terrible. I've had a couple bouts of insomnia in my life, and it's always because I'm deeply unhappy about something, going on.
Yeah.
Typically the situation that I'm in. But when I was younger, I wasn't even aware that I was that unhappy about it until I stopped sleeping. So
Yep.
it's at least I have that trigger that led me to get out of the bad situation that I've been in, you know?
Yep. Well, and that's almost a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's you know, walking it off, because you're certainly not getting help from someone else, you know. And I think walking it off is okay on the football field if you can stand up and walk off the field and then get the medical attention on the sidelines, you know, like get yourself out of the way, out of trouble. But that's also true. Like, get yourself out of the way so what, everyone else can keep playing. You know, like, oh, now you're in the way because you're hurt. Now you get out of here. You're hurt, out of the way, you know. And I don't know if that's really what it is, but, you know, I know on most teams, everyone's concerned about the downed player and stuff, but just the way it's kind of like, he's down. We're going to commercial break. We're going to sell you more shit. Well, this poor man is hurt, you know, at least with the NFL stuff. But, you know, be tough, walk it off. It's no big deal. I fell off a cliff twice as high when I was your age, you know, whatever. And even like the emotional stuff, like, oh yeah, you're still like, you're in high school, so what? She's not into you, blah blah blah, or, you know, the person you like's not into you, doesn't matter gender. You know, like, there's gonna be more. There's plenty of fish in the sea. Like, all these things, and there's some truth in some of them. You know what I mean? But I think not getting to the underlying, like, not acknowledging the feeling. Like, I can see that you are upset, or you're confused, or you're hurt, or you're sad, or you're, you know, like, at least acknowledge the feeling and say it's okay to have feelings instead of, you know, real men don't cry. You know, oh, you're upset? Just go buy a Ford F-150, put some pipes on that bad boy, lift it up, you're good to go. Sadness can't catch you when you're up off the ground.
You're blaspheming my Ford F-150, bro.
I know. I couldn't blaspheme Dev's truck because he's got cameras everywhere. It's awesome. Like, we're almost like there's like a artificial little drone thing that flies above and shows like all the surroundings and stuff. Right. It's like crazy. It's like that one of those cars that Pierce Brosnan had in one of the Bond movies. He was driving from his phone. You know, yes. The cameras everywhere. Yes. I keep asking Dev to show me the thumbtack dispenser thing for when he's being chased by the cops, but he hasn't done it yet.
It's top secret.
Yeah. Need to know basis only.
So I guess with all that information and statistics about mental health, and basically all three of us are guilty ourselves about not, you know, really coming out with anything unless it's going to be something completely severe. So what is everybody's sort of like responsibility as far as mental health? Not just men's mental health, but mental health in general. Like, what, to be more sensitive to others, to like, hey, what's going on? Hey, so-and-so's acting kind of weird. Like, maybe we should check in on them. I don't know, you know, like.
Yeah, and I'm not a mental health professional, so, you know.
Same.
None of us here are. I think the big thing for me is, even with people that you really trust and love and care about, sometimes I find it difficult to share things, you know. I guess fear of the judgment, or maybe fear of more of the same from growing up as suck it up, just, you know, toughen up, man up, whatever. And I think that the way we respond to people's issues might help us respond to our own issues. And I know I talked about this book a little bit on our book episode, Mike and listeners, but Good Inside by Dr. Becky, I can't remember her last name, but it's a parenting book. And it talks about when your child is upset, you acknowledge the emotion and then kind of like work them through it. And sometimes, you know, and her thing is like, you know, two things can be true. You can be upset about not getting an extra piece of cake, but you're still not getting an extra piece of cake. But I think that initial, you know, assuming the best and believing what the person is telling you right up front, you know, yes, you're upset. I can see you're upset. You know, kind of acknowledging that might be a good first step, you know, in creating conversations that are more open, for one. And two, I also think, you know, if you have a friend, doesn't matter gender or anything, but if you have a friend you haven't heard from in a while, never hurts to say, hey, how's it going? I was thinking about you. Not that any one person can save anybody necessarily just by reaching out, but you might be able to start a conversation where they can, you know, realize maybe they're in a severe place and then can, do, I don't know.
Well, and that might be all that person needs, actually.
It could be, yeah.
And
I'm
you
just trying to
never
separate the guilt of, let's say you do reach out to that friend and then, or you were meaning to reach out to that friend and then they, killed themselves or something. And you're like, you can't put that guilt on yourself, because if 60% of the men who commit suicide have gone to get help and obviously didn't get it, that's not on you or me,
Right.
So it's not a burden we have to place on ourselves to save everybody. But I think by creating a better conversation environment for having discussions like that,
make it more normal. Make it more.
Yeah, make it
more
norm.
of a
normalize men having feelings.
Absolutely.
Thoughts, Mike?
I agree. And I think that, at least for younger men, it is becoming more normal.
Yeah, I hope.
Nate and I have talked about this extensively, but being the angry asshole guy and turning all of your emotions into rage is not in fashion for people our age. So
fun though it may be.
Exactly. It is quite fun, can be. But it's not very good for your health.
Yeah. No, it's fun in the moment, but looking back, it's not fun or nice or anything I would aspire to be. All right. You ready for the next topic? Men's health.
Let's go.
All right. Divorce. Another happy topic. This one, and I just heard this randomly while I was doing the other bit of research for this episode, but only 29 to 30% of divorces are initiated by men, meaning that 70% of divorces are initiated by the woman. So women are more likely than men to initiate divorces, but women and men are just as likely to end non-marital relationships. So if you're dating somebody, either one, they're just as likely to end it, but marriage shifts the percentage of ending firmly in the woman's category.
That's interesting.
I did know that, and I think it's related to a lack of prenuptial agreements, because in a divorce, men traditionally lose the children and they lose the majority of the possessions, and the women, on average, women can gain from a divorce. They're not losing from a divorce. Not that being out of a relationship is bad, but they're not financially losing in the same way that men are.
Yeah, financially and with the custody situation. I agree 100%. That makes sense.
Yeah, and this article here says that women initiate the divorce more now often than in the past, because women now have a lot more job opportunities. They have higher independent incomes than they have historically had. Divorces are easier to get because no-fault divorces is a thing, and that's, I don't know if it's everywhere, but there are certain states that are no-fault divorce, which means you don't have to prove a legal reason why you want the divorce. It's just I don't want the marriage anymore, and it can happen. You don't have to prove that your spouse is beating you or committing crimes or whatever. There's no burden of proof on any of that kind of stuff, which I guess is good in some cases, right? I don't know. I don't want to keep it. I don't want to force anyone to be somewhere they don't want to be. And then the other reason is men actually gain from a marriage. So they have statistically proven, medically proven, better health, longer life expectancy, about 2.2 years longer, being taken care of domestically, I guess in the 50s, and women don't enjoy the same perks. Well, the modern marriage isn't so much that the wife is going to have dinner set when the husband comes home from work in his car, honey, I'm home, here's dinner, and all the kids are fed and put to bed, and you can just smoke a cigar and record a podcast.
We should go back to times. Make America great again, gentlemen.
What was the one? It was my favorite one. I think about it often. Poor people are just as smart as white people.
Oh, yeah.
Or whatever it was, the Biden quote.
Yes. Poor kids are just as smart as white kids.
There we go. So I've got a couple of reasons why women initiate divorce more often. Number one is women are more likely to feel held back by the marriage. And that's with some of the stigma of them taking on more of the domestic duties. Although that's not true. I believe in a lot of my friends' marriages or my marriage. I feel it's kind of like it's a shared household, so the shared domestic duties are shared as well. I can read a lot more into that, but I don't know that we need to go super in depth into these. women often take on more of the emotional burden than the men. And we talked about this a little bit with the suicide. Like, men aren't raised or taught to communicate and process emotions. They're taught to shove them down and either eat food, drink beer, or go join the army and blow somebody up. And then number 3 is women no longer tolerate consistent, unacceptable behavior. And that probably has a lot to do, well, hopefully with, other men and other people in society just not tolerating, like you said, Mike, the angry asshole persona. And I think, maybe social media and stuff where other women have come out and left domestic abusers or tricky situations themselves. I know a lot of bars have signs in the women's bathroom because I go in there frequently. No, I'm just kidding. I don't. Where you can ask the bartender for a specific drink and they'll help get you out of the bar if there's a tricky situation. And I think that's great. That's good stuff. Like, yeah, you should be able to, but that's women helping women. And we need something similar with men's mental health. I'm not saying all men are great. I'm also not saying all women are great. I'm just, we've got these systems in place in society to help women out of tough situations. And, people are constantly looking for places to do that. And I think that that's great. And I'm not trying to take anything away from that. I think we also need people to start thinking about men's mental health and how can we put things in places, like why when I'm peeing at the sports ball stadium, am I seeing roofing ads on the LCD screen in front of the urinal? Shouldn't I be seeing like, hey, does your neck really tight right now? Like, you might be stressed the fuck out. Go see our fucking doctor. Call this number. Right. Like, I get it, money and advertising and all that stuff. But if you can put something in a women's bathroom for, hey, is that creep over there hitting on you? Ask for this drink. We'll get rid of him, get you out of here, call you an Uber, whatever. We can do similar stuff with men's mental health. Men go places. We do things. Put it on my lawnmower blade when I'm down there trying to change it. Hey, have you taken a deep breath lately? I know you're changing a lawnmower blade, but maybe you need some mental health too.
I like it.
It's a good idea. I think that it's going to pay dividends necessarily because we have to change.
Well, it's not supposed. Yeah, it might wither on the vine, but
yeah. How do you get advertisers on board with something like that? That's $1 million question right there. Hey, we could get rich off this.
We could. You know what? We could do our own guerrilla nice ashes banners in bathrooms. Have you smoked a cigar recently? Have you liked, followed, commented on our podcasts? Also, your mental health is important to us. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I mean, who pays for the other stuff? I know there's big funds for anti-sex trafficking and things, and they'll even put those in men's bathrooms. Like if you're being trafficked, here's steps to do, and they'll put it in places where grown men won't look, but like a child might.
Right. Yeah, you'd think with high statistics with the suicide rate and such that there's got to be something with awareness that could be creatively done. Make it more stylish, make it more sexy. That sounds really silly, but
yeah, it doesn't. I don't know. I'm not the marketing guy,
right?
For this, but if somebody could, some group, there's got to be men advocacy groups that aren't like neo-Nazis and want to fund something like this, that would be important to them. I found a grand total of like 5 articles. So those 5 different groups must care about men's mental health somewhat. I don't know. There's got to be some kind of initiative, something someone could do. But it goes back to the resources, and the medical health care professionals don't really care. And have you guys seen those really strange statistics they'll put out sometimes? Like 1 in 5 homeless people is a woman. Well, that's a weird way of saying 4 out of 5 homeless people are men.
Yeah.
Yeah. If but maybe that goes to Mike's disposable man.
Yeah, maybe it
that
does.
He has in his closet. Oh, no, the theory.
I think the reason why we don't have men's advocacy groups is because of this disposable male. Men are looked down upon societally, at least in mainstream American culture. I don't know if you guys have been following the new Star Wars series, but they have basically said that men are no longer...
That R2-D2 is canonically a lesbian?
Yes, and that C-3PO is a homosexual man, which is really insulting to the actor that's just using his normal voice. I don't think that his partner, Christine, would be very happy about that,
Well, being called a homosexual these days is not the burn it was in the 90s, I'll tell you that.
I had somebody at the bar the other night ask me if I was gay.
Was he propositioning you, or?
No, it was really strange because it was at where Megs works. She had just come up behind me and sort of rubbed on my shoulder and gave me a kiss on the cheek or whatever, and was going outside. And I was sitting beside this gentleman who was drinking liquor, and he was clearly intoxicated. But he turned and looked at me and he's are you gay, man? And I thought that was a really strange thing, considering that my girlfriend had just kind of shown me affection. It was really, really bizarre. I didn't even know how to take it.
I don't know how that would affect his night of.
No, I'm not. But I mean, I didn't care to like question why he's questioning me about it. I just thought it was really strange.
Yeah, I don't know how that would affect him drinking to the bottom of the bottle in any way, shape, or form, but he was clearly on a mission. Yeah, that's why I said earlier, Mike, the disposable male and Star Wars specifically being called out for that. And, we've talked at length about, representation, if done right, is good, but representation for representation's sake, or for, I don't know, I guess it's not really representation's sake, it's more like for the preaching aspect of it, or the virtue signaling of it. Like, it's a fictional universe in space. There's aliens. It doesn't matter, really. Like, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter what genders, races, preferences you put in there. Because it's
I agree.
make
I also
believe.
think
It's
that
made up.
It's made up, and I'm a sci-fi fan. And to think that in a future society, they're still going to have the same social issues that we have, highly unlikely. Obviously, sci-fi talk. A lot of the topics are proxies to discuss current day issues, but a proxy for that is not directly having the issue.
Yeah, and you don't have to be so heavy-handed with it that it takes away from the enjoyment of the completely 100% made-up universe. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I don't know. I feel like Star Trek, at least the original and Next Generation and stuff, did a really good job tackling some of those issues without being heavy-handed with it and overly preachy about it.
I agree. My favorite series of Star Trek, as everybody knows, is Deep Space Nine. And they dealt with a lot of those issues, but they always did it in the holodeck or in a alternate universe type situation. It was never 24th century Earth that was still having racial tensions or issues with gay people or something like that. It was always outside of the main timeline. Go ahead, Nate.
Oh yeah, and they had the original series had the first interracial kiss ever telecast.
Yes. Deep Space Nine, one of the very early lesbian relationships.
Yeah. And they did it, but they did it in ways that made sense with the story and in the thing. And they didn't really call extra attention to it. Like, I was looking at some of the dialogue from Madam Web or something, and it was just the worst dialogue I've ever read in my life. And it's people who write dialogue like that makes me think that maybe this person that's writing this dialogue shouldn't have representation anywhere in film. You know what I mean? Like, you can make a good story, and there are good minorities and good, non-white straight men, writers and creators that create awesome things, but apparently Hollywood can't find them. But they're out there. I've seen the stuff they put out, and it's excellent. But Hollywood can't find them.
They have the message.
Not to go on a Hollywood tangent. I've got some more just general health stats here for men, just to bring us back to... I don't know, maybe this goes back to the first one where, why are white males the ones most likely to kill themselves? Well, it's not Star Wars, I hope, because that's a made-up universe, and they can do whatever they want with it, I guess. But, struggling to adapt to the newer way of society. And the way we were brought up is drastically different than the way women are brought up. And there's pros and cons. But this one here, men are significantly less likely than women to see a doctor or report symptoms to a health care provider. Only 60% of men go to the doctor for a yearly routine checkup, and 40% won't go until something's seriously wrong.
So how about you guys? Do you guys go in for yearly checkups?
No.
You don't?
No, but...
So you're not 50 like my old ass.
So I'm diabetic, so I go into twice, maybe 3 times a year, going to see my endocrinologist.
Okay.
About my diabetes.
Sure.
And I just am kind of like, well, I'm, she's a doctor.
Sure.
If there's something super obvious, she'd be like, hey, and I do labs for them. And one time they're like, hey, your vitamin D is low. You should take a vitamin D supplement. So I did. And
see.
I am, and I still do, I've never gotten any complaints in bed about my vitamin D being low.
Yeah.
But...
Right on. And they're not sticking their fingers in your butt not quite yet.
No, that
right?
costs extra.
Oh, I thought.
Funnily enough.
Is that like
insurance won't cover it.
Wait. 40 years old. Is that that's when they start checking your prostate? Am I right? I don't.
I believe so. I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah.
There is a prostate thing down here later. I think if you curve the finger, yeah, I went in to get my prostate checked, and I took off my pants, and I asked the doctor where I should put him. He goes, right over there next to mine. Okay. All right. The overall mortality rate is 41% higher for men than women. And it's higher for men for 8 out of 10 leading causes of death, including heart disease, cancer, stroke, and diabetes. Yeah, my wife came home the other day, and I was like fooling around myself. She said, "Why are you masturbating again?" And I was like, "Come on, babe. The doctor said I could rub one out whenever I wanted." She goes, "No, the doctor said you could have a stroke at any moment."
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I told you it was going to get lighter at the end. I don't know. Maybe it's not that we choose not to go to the doctor, but the doctor just asks us not to come back.
Oh, yep.
All right. 31% of men suffer depression in their lifetime, and 9% of men have daily feelings of depression or anxiety, but only 25% will talk to a medical health professional, and only 1/3 of them will take medication.
Okay, wait. So that's a percentage of a percentage of a percentage?
I don't think it's a percentage or percentage or percentage.
Okay.
Or maybe it is. Well, so it says 31%. Oh, so of the 31% who suffer, a quarter will talk to a mental health care professional, and of that, only a third will actually take the medication they're prescribed. So I think you're right. It's a percentage of a percentage of a percentage.
Say that again.
Hit rewind, jump back 30 seconds from this point. All right. Prostate cancer is the second leading cause of cancer deaths in men in the United States. A man is 100% more likely to die of prostate cancer than a woman.
Okay.
That is prejudicial. That is prejudicial, sir. Real ladies have balls, okay? Real ladies have balls.
Yeah. All right. A man is 2 to 3 times more likely to get prostate cancer if his father, brother, or son had it. So talk to your doctor about having a PSA and DRE levels checked. And then this last one here is the one I told everyone at the top we weren't going to talk about, but here it is, rearing its ugly head again, or maybe not. Erectile dysfunction affects nearly 30 million men of all ages across the United States. If you're having problems, see a urologist and make sure that it's not an early warning sign for something more serious like heart disease, high blood pressure, or high blood sugar.
30, did you say 30 million?
30 million.
I wonder what percentage that is. We've been working with percentages. I'm all screwed up now.
I know. Now I'm giving you let's just find out how many men are in America, right?
That'd be about 20%. Just under 20%.
Okay. Mike knows.
Nice job, Mike.
You can always count on Mike to know exactly how many men there are in a given geographical area. Just kidding.
Yes.
So I think the underlying theme, I hope, is, we can just do the terrorist thing from George W. If you see something, say something. If you used to pee in one stream and now you have 3, go see a doctor. If there's a rash there that wasn't there before, pay extra for the hooker next time. No, but in seriousness, there's so many different little signs, and you see all these stories online about somebody who said, and it's usually a woman, who said, oh, something was off, so I went in and they caught a, insert medical malady here. And
right.
If it would have gone any longer, it would have been incurable or inoperable or what have you. So, but there's also a fine line because with our healthcare system, I think our healthcare system is largely to blame too because everything is so expensive, even if you have coverage. Like you're paying for coverage, and then you pay for visits, and you pay for the medications and things like that. So,
so with regard to mental health, then, who knows how things will change in the medical department as far as getting more of a handle or taking things more seriously or really getting to the crux of things when there are signs. I mean, who knows what the answer is to that? And again, none of us are trained psychiatrists, physicians, or anything like that. But I know that me personally, what's helped with me if I'm not doing well, because I'm pretty aware of my own mental health, and when I'm not doing well, hanging out with bros is huge. Bro time is huge.
Yeah.
If you can fit that in, actually, if you could fit that in as a regular thing, like once a week, like, okay, once a week, I just hang out with my homies, like if you're married and you have kids and stuff like that, it's just so easy to like just fall into that whole, like, this is your life. This is what you do, it's 9 to 5 and then I'm doing, kid time and wife time and whatever. But like, you're sort of like ignoring parts of you that need that camaraderie with other men.
Yeah.
I think it's really critical. I mean, again, like I say, just my personal opinion, and that's something that's worked with me is, and I'm also guilty of like not following through with that, but I know that I should because I know that it helps.
Yeah, I've definitely had not lots, but enough conversations to where it's, in my memory with Sarah about some of my hobbies and things, and my response has always been like, well, I kind of need this for myself, my mental health, so, she's like, well, you get to do this with your friends. You want to do that with your friends. And it's like, well, yeah, I do, because it is a de-stressor, smoking cigars and talking about things with Mike and Dev and Simha and Dave and, the other guests we've had on. Really de-stresses me.
Sort of a form of therapy, really.
Even when we have technical issues that I have to troubleshoot at game time, or what have you. But, and some of the other stuff I do, like, it's just good because these people, even if you just play online games with people you've never met in person, like, they get to know you. You play online enough with somebody, they can tell from your tone of voice or how you're typing in chat or how you're even playing the game if something might be wrong, and that's how many more people to check in on your welfare.
Absolutely.
Possibly. So
I agree. Couldn't say it better myself.
You subscribe to Bro Time, Mike?
I do. I'm a big subscriber to hobbies in general, and a lot of that is the human interaction you get, in my opinion, less than the hobby itself.
Do you prefer separate hobbies for spouses or partners, or similar hobbies, or a mix of both?
In my case, we have a mix of both. As everybody knows, I am a big fan of the B word, and I'm the only one that does that in my house. But my dad does it, and a lot of people I know bowl as well. And Sarah doesn't. She hates bowling, but I bowl at least once a week, year round. So I get my time away to hang out with people. And I board game, just like Nate does. So once or twice a month, Al comes over and we board game, and I think it's important to do that stuff.
Yeah, I agree. Whatever it is you do, it doesn't have to be bowling or board games or podcasting about cigars and things, I know I enjoy when Dev is like, hey, let's spin some vinyl or let's play some Mario Golf Toadstool Tour on GameCube, or we just, he helped me, and so did my mom's husband, Al, helped me fix the air conditioning on my car that's 20 years old. So that's all important stuff, it's like, it's not just dicking around in the garage. Sometimes it is, but, just to have an outlet where you can like do something, fix something, feel like a big, strong man, and then pour your heart out to someone, unsuspecting victim.
Absolutely. Just something that kind of pulls you away, really, I think. Pulls you away in a way from like your daily sort of like routine or your a little bit of escape.
Get the clear head space.
Yeah.
Because that statistic where it was like 32% were stressed about work stuff and financial stuff and then health stuff. So there's definitely stressors out there for everyone. That doesn't matter gender or race or nationality or anything. There's stressors out there. It's stressful. Everything's stressful all the time, But I think having an outlet somewhere to be able to kind of clear your head or setting up some of those healthy habits. Like if you have a hobby that causes you stress and anxiety, then it's not worth it. Like a lot of people who watch the NFL. That's why I don't watch the NFL anymore, because everybody's so stressed out about whether the team is going to win or not. And they get so angry and mad if you cheer for the other team. And it's just not fun for me. I don't get any kind of benefit from that other than more stress and anxiety. And it doesn't matter. They're millionaires chasing a rubber ball around, like, what do I care what they do? It just was too much stress. So I stopped doing it, and I feel better for that. And I don't watch, news programs like Fox or CNN because it's on repeat. Every half hour you get the same story from the last half hour, and I feel a lot less stress not having those things in my life. And maybe you get like the calm from watching that stuff, and that's great. That's fine. We're not out here to vilify any of your hobbies, but certainly identify the ones that bring you peace or you feel better after doing.
Indeed.
I think I'm just a guy smoking a cigar.
Right.
Speaking about cigars, Mike, where are you at?
I just put it down. It was burning my fingers.
What did you think?
I liked it. It's not the best cigar I've ever had, but it was pleasant, smooth. It did get darker throughout.
Yeah. Gradually.
Like
it wasn't a sudden shift, but
Yep.
No, it did have a shift. It got darker, still smooth. And that little
Yeah.
bitter note never turned into anything bad. So that was good.
Nope.
But I liked it.
I liked it.
I liked it too. It's fairly consistent. It did have the gradual darkening, but in a slow, consistent manner. One puff wasn't drastically different from the next puff. It was kind of a slow change. So yeah. Anything else anyone has to say about men's health, men's mental health, and or Pride Month?
I think the message is just be aware of your own mental health and try to be more aware of others, the people that are in your circle.
Yeah, and if something's different one morning, one evening, whatever, and it doesn't go away right away, just go get it checked out.
Yep.
You'll have less stress if a doctor looks at you and says it's nothing, or it was, I don't know, you ate too much ramen or something when, I don't know. Who knows?
Is there such a thing?
The salt intake was too high.
Dude.
Yeah.
not the cheap 25-cent a pack stuff, as I'm talking about real ramen.
Yeah. Oh, I just love those packs. Just eat them. But, I guess that's kind of, unfortunately, saying, like, just go get it checked out is kind of a thing you can't really say, because not everybody in this country, the greatest country on the face of the planet, as in one of our other episodes, right, Mike? Not everybody has the same access to healthcare or the same monetary means to access the healthcare that they are provided with. Because with the Obamacare, thanks Obama, the thresholds are such to qualify for that sort of thing that it actually, a lot of what people would consider middle class don't qualify for that, even if they're on a health plan or don't have access to a decent health plan where they can actually afford for the health care. So there are people out there that will help, though, is the point. So if there's some sort of problem or something you notice, just talking to somebody, you can't solve a problem if you don't talk to somebody about it, usually, right?
Right. And I guess somebody should mention, too, I guess, that there are hotlines out there, and I'm not really sure exactly what there are now, or like what they are. There's a phone number you can call.
Yeah, they have, you know what? That's a good idea. 988 in Minnesota is an immediate emotional support group to Minnesota residents. So that's specific for Minnesota. There's a national mental health hotline, 866-903-3787. And then we'll pull up the big one here as well. 988 is the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline, which I believe is the same as the one I just mentioned for Minnesota. So if you need help, it's suicide and crisis. So it's not limited to suicidal thoughts. But if you're having a mental health crisis, 988 in the United States. I'm not sure what it is in your country, if you're in a different country than the United States. But it's not a bad idea to have that number handy somewhere. I mean, we most of us have the internet in our pockets, so it's never more than one Google search away, as just proved here. But, if you're one of those people, a man, or anybody, the gender doesn't matter, but we just proved that men don't want to go and get help. But if you're one of those people that waits for a crisis, then you better have the crisis number ready to do it, and then that's one less worry on your plate of worries, Okay, if I'm going to wait for a crisis, I at least have the crisis number. So if I'm in the crisis, the number's right there.
988.
988. Unless it's a medical emergency, then it's 911. But or whatever it is in your country. Anything to add, Mike?
No, I don't think so. I think we had some good information. I am one of the people that goes to the doctor every year, but I'm also one of the people that would never call a helpline. So I'm no better than anybody else, so to speak.
Everyone's got their own things with it, I
Yep.
guess. We all have our own like medical baggage, why we do or don't, or would or wouldn't do certain things. So,
Absolutely.
and that's okay. Wherever you're at, it's okay. People are out there that can help, will help, want to help. Anyway, mental health, regardless of gender, is very important to anyone. So it's not just for the men. We focus on the men for this episode because it's Men's Mental Health Month in addition to Pride Month. But it's important for everyone. Mental health is very important, and other health is also very important. So don't mess around with it. If there's something going on, and you can't solve it on your own, find somebody to help you solve it.
Absolutely.
Anything to add, Mike?
No, I do not.
You don't
If
have
you're
a
having a
hot take
problem-
to spin us back to happy mode before we sign off?
Well, this is a very uplifting episode, guys.
Yeah, right.
If you're having a problem, talk to people about it. Also, you need to search your feelings because a lot of men probably don't even know that they're having those feelings until it's apparent, very apparent, too apparent. So self-analysis
That's true.
and self-monitoring is very important.
And Mike's favorite prescription is make sure you have food and water and then go sit in the woods and have some introspection.
That's not bad.
Like get away from the hustle bustle.
Hmm.
Always a good thing to do as long as you're properly hydrated. But, you don't have to be uplifting all the time. So don't put that burden on yourself either. You don't have to be anything all the time.
Thanks for having me on.
Yeah,
I appreciate
thanks
it.
for coming on, Dev. We were looking
Absolutely.
forward to this. And thanks for listening.
Be safe, have fun.